Boys and girls, we are back. New patch, new character. I'm not gonna lie, I'll be completely honest. I was not too hyped about Hugo when he was first announced. I like the fact that he was a tall guy. He was a vampire, he used a scythe, which I'm a big fan of scythes as weapons. But I wasn't too interested in general. Then I saw his kit, I saw the finalized mechanic, and I was like, okay, this is our first, I guess you could call it a nuke character. You know, we've had burst characters before, even as far back as like Juyu, for example. You could count her as a burst character because most of her damage comes from the stun window, but Hugo takes it to the next level. With the finalized mechanic, you know, he's on field for like 5 seconds, 10 seconds at most, and then you're back to your stunner. You know, he comes in, he nukes, and he dips. So that's a pretty interesting playstyle, one that seems quite fun. So we have to pull, of course. Like always, the goal is really simple. I'm not getting any Mindscapes this time round, so 1 copy of Hugo, and then we're going to get his Wengine as well, because the Wengine is quite good. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Just gonna do a temple anyways. This is probably it. Yep, there we go. If we're gonna get lighter and the Wengine with the amount of pulls that we have, this has to be a win. We can't really afford to lose. My luck has been pretty good recently. I don't think I've lost a 50-50 in a good while. Let's fucking go. This is huge. Yeah, this is very big. This is very, very big. Nice. This works out really well. We should be able to pick up the Wengine pretty easily, and then it's a toss up for lighter. Am I gonna get the Wengine for lighter as well? I don't know. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'll let you guys know what happened with lighter. But let's move on. It's time for the Wengine. Okay, here we go. We should be okay. I'm not gonna lie. Our record for Wengines is so bad. It's so bad. So it's always terrifying. Okay. It's a good day. It's a very, very good day. We got exactly what we wanted. Whew. So, getting Hugo was relatively painless. We had to go to soft PE both times, but we won both 50-50s, so I can't be too unhappy. But yes, now it's time to build him, so I will catch you when he's built. And we are back. I'm not gonna lie, I was genuinely quite worried about building this character, mainly because Hormone Punk, spoiler alert, I didn't have many of that disc at all, so I was gonna have to go into it essentially raw, farming from the very beginning. But yes, it turned out to be much better than I was expecting. So let's get into it. Now, as you can see, if you are a bit perceptive, he's at M2. A little story about this. I essentially got M1 by complete accident. I was pulling on lighter, and a lapse of judgment, completely forgot I pulled on this banner by accident and just got flat again. So unfortunately, I had to go for M2. We'll talk about it later when we get into the Mindscapes, but stopping at M1 is just kind of trolling for me, so I did end up getting M2. And this has influenced the build slightly, but it is what it is. Okay, let's get into the stats, shall we? First one, attack 2.9k. This is pretty good. I think anything from around 2.7 to 3,000 plus, you're going you're doing pretty well for yourself. Now 2.9 with ice damage bonus as the Dis 5, I think is pretty solid. I've seen some people go a bit higher with the ice damage, but having the 30% ice damage and not having to run a Dis 5 attack and still having 2.9, I'm very, very happy with that. Now crit rate. In my opinion, his most important stat. I've seen so many builds where in combat with all of the buffs active, he's sitting at sometimes even lower than 80% crit. And I just don't think this is good enough. On other DPS, you can get away with like 75, 80% crit pretty well. But on a character like Hugo, where 99% of your damage comes from one singular hit, if you don't crit on that hit, you have to restart. If you're trying to go for like a crazy time on Shiyu defense, both of those need to crit for you to do that one shot, essentially. So by not having, I would say, at least 90%, you're kind of trolling a little bit, but it's up to you. Me personally, I wanted to get as close to 100 as possible because I have M1, and M1 gives an additional 12% on top of the 12% that you get from just your passive. I'm sitting at just over 100%, so I'm perfectly happy with that. Crit damage, it could be a little bit higher, I think, if I had a bit better rolls, but 174 is really good. When I factor in all of the buffs from M1, my Wengine and stuff like that, I'm at like 250 in combat. So this is really good. These are really strong stats, and I think right now he's one of my better built characters for sure. Really, really strong. Okay, let's talk about his skills now. So the core passive, obviously you're going to max that out every time. In terms of actual skill priority, the two main ones are going to be his ultimate and the skill. These are the two primary ways you're going to do your Totalize damage. This is what is most important. And the chain attack as well. The chain attack is very important for Hugo. It does a ton of damage for one. So these are the two skills that you want. Everything else, you can consider them just nice to have. I just have them sitting at 7. The way Hugo plays is that you're on field for very, very short periods of time. So you don't necessarily really use his dodge. You don't auto attack very much. Only time I would pick this up is when you're at very high Mindscapes, because that's when you start to really utilize his auto attacks, or if you're playing him with a non-double stunner comp. If you don't have 2 stunners for whatever reason, then you're going to be more on field and you want to level up his attack and dodge and stuff like that. But for the way 99% of people are going to play him with double stunner, you don't need these other stats realistically. So I would just put everything into these two and then you're good to go. Okay, what everyone is here for, let's talk about the drive discs. So what options do you have for the 4-piece? 4-piece, there are primarily 2 options. You have the more specialized option, which is going to be Hormone Punk. This is the one which is going to give you the best bang for your buck in terms of just raw numbers. It fits in perfectly, right? You could think of this before as kind of like a speedrunner set, but it just lines up with his entire playstyle so well. Upon entering combat or switching in, 25% attack, which is huge. This is really, really strong because his entire gameplay loop is you're on your stunner, you stun, you switch into Hugo, you get this 25%, you nuke, and you dip, and you just repeat that. So it lines up so well with his kit in general. It's really specialized for him, despite being a set that was released ages ago, right? The other option, which I would consider the more comfortable option, and the option you would go with if you're not running 2 stunners, especially if you're playing him more on field and stuff like that, you're just going to go 4-piece Woodpecker. There's nothing much better than Woodpecker. You should have a lot of other sets as well. A lot of other discs, I mean, sorry. So those are your 2 options. In terms of the 2-piece, if you're running Hormone, you can either run 2-piece Woodpecker like I'm doing if you need the crit, or if you have just an abundance of crit, you can obviously just go with the standard Branch and Blade Song 2-piece for that extra crit damage. Other 2-piece options that you have would be ice damage, especially if you are running an attack piece 5. You can go like Polar Metal for the ice damage, that works as well. But it's completely up to you. It really just depends on your stats. Okay, let's talk about the actual discs themselves, shall we? This is a fantastic disc. Crazy disc, if I'm being honest. If that rolled into attack, it would be the perfect disc, essentially. This too, I've been sitting on this one for a while. Finally got a chance to use it. Again, crazy disc. Crazy disc. This one, arguably one of my weaker discs. I mean, having 3 rolls into crit damage is insane, but if I had some attack here, it would be even better. I'm not complaining. Disc 4. Now, 95% of the time, you're going to be running crit damage. If there is a case where you just have too much crit damage and not enough crit rate, you could run the crit rate disc, but yeah, that's a very niche scenario. There are also scenarios where you just have too much crit rate and you could maybe run an attack percent one. You'd have to put that into an optimizer to find which one is best for you, but those are your options. But like I said, 95% of the time, you're going to be running crit damage. And this is a pretty good disc right here. 2 rolls into attack, I can't really complain. Disc 5, like always, you have a couple options. Obviously, ice damage bonus, I think, realistically ekes out everything else just slightly. But if you have an attack Disc 5, or even a pen ratio Disc 5, if the stats are insane, you can probably run it. It really comes down to your substats. Ice damage bonus is just going to be a couple percentage better. So it's really up to you. You could even argue, you know, if you're running someone like Lighter, who gives a lot of ice damage, you might want to run attack. But the percentages are so small that it's not worth losing your mind over. Whichever one has the best substats, just go for that one. Lastly, Disc 6, it's attack. There's not really any other option. Pretty solid disc. I really can't complain. This has been one of the smoother building sessions for me. Really nice. I'm super happy with the build. Okay, let's now talk about Wengines and Mindscapes quickly. To no one's surprise, the Wengine is completely ridiculous. It's just jam-packed full of stats and value. 24% crit rate. This is fantastic already. A massive 45% crit damage, completely unconditionally. This doesn't show in the stats page, but ridiculous. And then you slap on 25% defense ignore as well for the damage that he cares about. I mean, this is a crazy Wengine. Crazy Wengine. Let's talk about Mindscapes now. His M1, it's pretty whatever. It's just a stat increase, realistically. Because you have it, it lets you get away with having a little less crit rate, and another 30% crit damage is always welcome. Now, keep in mind, this only applies to when he's actually doing the Totalize, which is completely fine because that's what you want to crit, right? You don't care about anything else critting. You just want the Totalize effect to crit. So this is fantastic in that sense. But realistically, it's just a stat increase. If you're only thinking about going for M1 or the Wengine, it's Wengine every single time. Now, when we look at M2, however, this is pretty crazy. When using the ultimate to trigger your Totalize, it's not going to end the stun state. What this means is that you can use your ultimate to trigger Totalize, and then you can use your EX special to trigger Totalize again. This is crazy. You get to Totalize 2 times in one window. That's a lot of damage. You know, I've seen people hit like 10 million damage total with 2 Totalizers. This is crazy. On top of that as well, you will now ignore another 15%. So combine that with the Wengine. That's what? 40% defense ignore? So crazy, so crazy. M2 is really that stopping point for a lot of people. If you're going to go Mindscapes, I would stop at M2. That's where I would recommend. But if I had to choose between the two, it's Wengine every time. Every single time. Okay, let's talk about team compositions. Now, he's very unique in that he wants to run a double stun composition. The reason for this is because of his core skill. When there are 2 stun characters on your squad, Hugo gains 900 attack. So obviously it's not as much attack as you would get from a support, for example, but this is a substantial buff and it's how you want to play him anyways. So what stunners can you use? Most people I would say if you have Lighter, Lighter is your #1 stunner. For sure. Ice damage bonus, stuns really well, plays really well on field as well, so he's fantastic. Your second stunner option, most people are going to go Lycon. I personally don't have him built, so I won't be using him. The other option is also Trigger. Trigger, I think, works really well with either one of them because she's primarily off-field. So you're going to be spending most of your time on Lighter or Lycon, whoever it is you have. Now, you do have other options. Obviously, you can use Kaleda or any other Pulchara. Any of the other stunners do work as well, but those three are the big ones, right? Any combination of those works really well. Now, you do have the option to run 1 stunner and 1 support. If you perhaps don't have 2 stunners that work really well, you can do that as well. But ultimately, having 2 stunners is just going to be better. In terms of support, yes, you can use, someone like Astra Yao and stuff, but I just think it's better to save Astra Yao for your other team comp, for whatever composition you're running. So yes, his stuff is pretty set in stone. You really do want to run him with 2 stunners. And that, boys and girls, pretty much wraps it up for Hugo. He's extremely fun to play. Extremely fun to play. Just seeing those massive numbers is a massive dopamine hit for me. And the double stun playstyle is so fun. But yeah, let me know. Did you guys pull? Are you guys enjoying him? Let me know if you have better stats than me. Hope you enjoy the showcase, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.